Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, the state of tourism in central Indiana. The Brookings Institution spotlights Indianapolis. An Elkhart company turns to augmented reality. IU Health doubles down on its goal of making Indiana one of the nation's healthiest states. We hear from the new leader of the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana. Ball State students are heading to the Olympics, and our panel of insiders weighs in on the week's top stories. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Indianapolis is riding an unprecedented wave of convention, sports, and tourism success. Visit Indy's latest report shows a record 28.6 million visitors sparked more than $5 billion in economic impact in 2016, and some huge events are on the way. Visit Indy CEO Leonard Hoops joined host Gary Dick to talk about the state of tourism.
Sixth straight year of record numbers, $5.2 billion in visitor spending, has a big impact, obviously. What's really driving these numbers?
Well, we've really done a good job over the past 40 years of just continually building a world-class product. Our brand is not elevated the way some of the other cities in the country are, but we're starting to get there. But if you think about the actual infrastructure we have, the Convention Center, Lucas Oil Stadium, Bankers Life Field House, the Hoosier Hospitality mixed in with that, the hotels that are all connected to the Convention Center, it's a really well-thought-out product, and that's what's really driving a lot of the business.
And if you look at the size of the Convention Center and the business that it drives, we're competing as a city against a lot of big-time players. So this is a very competitive environment where you're enjoying those successes.
Yeah, I mean, we were, back before the expansion, probably booking 400,000 or 500,000 room nights a year, which is the key metric we look at. We're now pushing 800,000 to 900,000 consistently. 4 years in a row, we've booked somewhere near around 900,000 room nights.
Very quickly, the impact on jobs, I think, goes perhaps underreported or underappreciated, but how many jobs are really generated there?
Well, this industry right now is creating about 80,000 full-time equivalent jobs for central Indiana, which is an amazing number. You think about the $5.2 billion in economic impact. We're very excited, obviously, for the chance to have an Amazon HQ2 here in Indy, and they're talking about investing $5 billion over the course of several years. Tourism brings $5.2 billion to Indianapolis and central Indiana every year, and it supports those 80,000 jobs.
Great. 2017 was an important year, too. Those previous numbers in 2016. But news of the NBA All-Star Game weekend, the 2022 College Football National Championships. How important are really big marquee events like that?
Obviously, the economic impact of them is wonderful, but those kinds of events have legacies beyond the economic impact, the spending that happens in the weekend, the TV coverage you get, the media exposure, the brand building capabilities of them. We're going to have quite a run from December of 2020 until January of 2022 because we're going to get a Big Ten football championship. You're going to get the NBA All-Star Game in February of 21, NCAA Men's Final Four, April of 21, and Indy 500, another Big Ten championship, and then college football playoff winding it all up next January. Yeah,
quite a run. Well, I should mention also nonstop flights and the impact they have. I know Visit Indy was very involved in a number of areas, including the nonstop to Paris. But also nonstops are at a record level at the airport. How important is that to the convention business directly?
It's very important. When I got here in 2011, we had no nonstops to San Francisco. We had one, I think, 4 or 5 day a week to LA, nothing to Seattle, no transatlantic certainly. I can't say enough about what the airport authority, what IEDC and the chamber are all doing, working along with ourselves to make this happen. We now have 2 nonstops to Seattle, 3 to San Francisco, 3 to LA, and of course the Paris nonstop.
All right, let's talk about going forward, keeping up with that growth. Does the convention center need to grow more? Will there be another major downtown hotel?
We've been studying this really closely the last couple of years, and we've done both a hotel demand analysis and a space optimization study of the convention center. And what we found is that while the Maryland Street side, the North Campus, if you will, from the JW up to the Westin and that part of the convention center is doing really well, the South Campus along Capitol needs more hotel rooms and more ballroom space, and that's what we're looking to do next.
You got requests for information out right now. So this hotel, big hotel, could be 800 to 1,000 rooms. Seems as though it's moving forward.
Yeah, the CIB has put out an RFI, and they're looking for responses by March 1st. So I think in March, April, we'll have a pretty good idea of what the developer interest is in this and what our future looks like there.
All right, very good. Leonard Hoops, the CEO at Visit Indy. Thanks for joining us. More record numbers on tourism. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Still to come, prototyping will never be the same for an Elkhart manufacturer, and IU Health makes a big move. But first, Indianapolis is being touted as a national leader in 21st century economic development. A new book from the Brookings Institution tells the stories of cities around the globe making progress in a time of rapid change. Co-author Bruce Katz and BioCrossroads CEO David Johnson came in studio to talk about the book and Indianapolis's role in a global economy.
Bruce, congratulations on the book. I have not read it yet. I've read excerpts. It's a fascinating read, and it really gets to the heart of this whole idea, the global complexity facing in the economy now, and how cities, communities are playing a vital role. Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, and Copenhagen are the three cities. How did Indy get on that list for you?
So what we are seeing is a structural shift in the United States and Europe where problem solving is happening at the local level. And it's not just happening through local government, because cities are networks. They're clearly the engines of national economies. They're clearly the centers of global trade and investment. But they're networks of public, private, civic, university institutions and leaders. We were looking for a place around the world where this network comes together, works formally, backed by capital, using evidence focused on outcomes. This is the place.
Yeah.
We can't find another place in the United States or in Europe where all these sectors have come together for 20 years and had a strategy that they have executed with focus and discipline.
Yeah, and it is that collaboration. You mentioned BioCrossroads, the life sciences initiative under the CIC, the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership umbrella, and how that really is a model that you're talking about.
Well, it's an incredible model. And again, the federal government, like Elvis, has left the building. And states are governments. State governments are governments, which means they can be hijacked at times by partisanship. Cities are really networks. And the question for any city is, do you have network collaborative governance which can do grand things together, a 2 + 2 = 5 effect, essentially?
Yep. David, you head up CICP and also BioCrossroads. As you hear this coming from a nationally recognized, internationally recognized source, what does it mean to Indianapolis, and how does that give us a leg up, an advantage in competing for investment?
Well, it means a lot. I mean, these are Bruce and his team are really the folks that have written the book on 21st century economic development. And the fact that we are a chapter in this book is a tremendous advantage for us. Gary, I think in many ways, Bruce and Jeremy do a better job of telling our story than we have managed to do for ourselves, which speaks maybe not so well of us, but speaks awesomely of Bruce and Jeremy in this. And really the book also focuses on the need to marshal and focus leadership and resources and investments. And I do think we have ended up setting up CICP to be about harnessing resources and investments. So for our stakeholders to understand that that is a smart strategy, they feel it, but to see it reflected in this kind of work, it's incredibly valuable.
And Bruce talked about one of the projects that I think really kind of hits at this is 16 Tech here in Indianapolis, which is, again, the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute and other things there. You use that as a really good example.
So what we're seeing around the world is a new spatial geography of innovation. It used to be if you wanted to find innovation, you get in a car, you drive 20 miles, you go to a business park, and you go to a basement somewhere, and someone was keeping their secret. The way we innovate on products and process is through networks, mature companies, universities, startups, scale-ups, investors, and in relatively small geographies. So this is the way innovation is happening through these ecosystems. You're building out an innovation district right off the downtown, and I have to tell you, in 5 years, people will be coming here to look at this because you're very smart and strategic and you have the capital to pull this off.
It's a fascinating read, The New Localism. Bruce Katz with the Brookings Institution. David Johnson, as always, from the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership with BioCrossroads. Thanks very much. We'll probably do more on this in the future.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Gary.
Later in the podcast, IU Health launches a new foundation, and we hear from the new leader of the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana. But now, Elkhart-based RV component manufacturer Lippert Components says it's swapping clunky back and forths with clients, engineering, and production for a high-tech product development method, augmented reality. Director of Digital Innovation Michael Rupchak and RV product manager Dominic Balancio spoke with Kylie Valletta about the way to envision a product before making it.
So let's start, first of all, a lot of people think virtual reality nowadays and don't understand exactly what augmented reality is. So tell us what augmented reality is.
Yeah, sure. So virtual reality is a fully immersive experience. So typically someone has to wear something, some sort of goggles or some lens or something that takes them to a fully virtual environment, like a video game, an entertainment-based experience. With augmented reality, we're enhancing the natural vision and putting 3D objects in the person's vision, or a heads-up display or directions or any type of contextual information that's going to help the environment that they're in to do their job better.
So your technology is called LCI Workbench, augmented reality. So Dominic, explain how compared to the conventional methods of prototyping, how using augmented reality saves time and money.
Sure. So for instance, you're a product manager and you want a desk that's similar to what we're sitting at. So you think you know the size. So you give me basic schematics. I'll go back to engineering. Engineering will draw them. Then we've got to make it. Say that takes 2 weeks, maybe then to verify prints and everything else, get it assembled. That takes another week. Now you're up to 3. You're busy, so it's probably going to take me another week to get you back. Let's call it 4. If you come back and tell me that you don't like the desk that we're sitting at, we start the whole process all over again. So now I can spend an afternoon with you, get a basic schematic drawn up in the computer, and we can actually shrink it real time. I can go back upstairs to engineering and we can grow it a couple feet, shrink it a couple feet, and you'll actually be able to experience it in your floor plans. When I release something for the first time, you've already seen it in your coach.
So much more streamlined.
Much more streamlined.
So how common is augmented reality in the manufacturing industry and also in the RV manufacturing industry?
Yeah, in the manufacturing industry, we are seeing a lot more of our peers every month reading articles of other big manufacturing companies using it to do prototyping, using it to do layouts of new factories, using it to enhance the sales and marketing experience. So it's becoming more common in manufacturing. As far as RVing, I think, Dominic, that I haven't heard of anyone else doing it.
Neither have I. As far as we know, we're the only people in the RV segment that are using this kind of technology.
Trailblazers.
That's kind of cool to say that, right? Yeah.
So about how many of your clients are open to using it and are using it now?
So everybody wants to use it, and we're going to offer it to everybody. It's low cost to us, and like I said before, it speeds up the process for them. So we'll actually be rolling this out with several new products where they'll actually be able to, instead of physically experiencing a product, they'll be able to augmentedly experience a product. So sales will be lined up with iPads or with the HoloLens, and they'll actually be able to go to customers, load something up in the coach, and they can experience it there instead of having to come all the way either to our shop at R&D or all the way up to marketing in Elkhart.
Okay, and Michael, just a couple seconds left, but you said this is just a tease. There's so much more to come with augmented reality.
I mean, so anything that the human eye can do, augmented reality can enhance that or improve that. So as this technology becomes more mature, definitely expect to see more fascinating applications in every sector: manufacturing, entertainment, sales, marketing, you name it.
All right, well, Michael, Dominic, thank you both for being here today. We're excited to see what else comes down the pipe at LCI.
All right. Thank you.
You can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, new leadership comes to the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, and Ball State students are covering the Winter Olympics. But first, IU Health is launching a foundation, it says, as part of its goal to make Indiana one of the healthiest states in the nation. It will focus on issues including addiction, disease, and behavioral health. IU Health CEO Dennis Murphy and Chief Philanthropy Officer Crystal Miller discussed the move on the business of health.
Crystal, I'll start with you. You're new to Indiana, came from North Carolina to really be heading up the foundation. As you look at the focus, unfortunately, the stats do not bode well for Indiana from a health perspective in many areas. That's going to be a focus of this foundation. How so?
It's going to be a focus for the foundation because it's pulling together the strength of what we've been doing in philanthropy already in each of our communities, but it's giving people an opportunity to give at a larger level in a bigger way to really move the needle with some of these big issues across the state.
And I know a part of the focus is going to enable kind of a new set of donors, if you will. And this is very much a statewide foundation. The IU Health footprint is statewide, so this will reach a wide swath.
It will. It's kind of a balance. We want to make sure that donors who give locally continue to do that because that's where they have a passion. Mm-hmm. We also know in big issues like behavioral health, infant mortality, smoking cessation, we need donors to come together and make a big difference. And we're already seeing that happen.
Yeah. Dennis, IU Health is a major employer, 30,000 plus, 35,000 employees in the state. And you are a firm believer, I know, that philanthropy can be a driver to address some of these these health issues?
Absolutely. I think philanthropy is the thing that makes a difference, so that you can really build some unique non-traditional programs that allows you to recruit special people and retain special people to work on these big issues. And ideally, it'll be a catalyst for partnerships. So we see it really accomplishing those three big missions for us moving forward.
Yeah, you talk people, progress, and partnerships are really the focus. And again, to kind of hit on this a bit, this is really a statewide. So you see impact in communities, not just here in central Indiana, but around the state.
Absolutely. Gary, these problems don't know geography. So all of the issues that we're facing, they're urban, they're rural, they're in every part of the state. And so we're really looking to have an impact on the health of the entire state.
Yeah, Crystal, as you look at some of these challenging issues, obesity, smoking, a number of these issues impacting the country, but in particular here in Indiana, how will the foundation and how will these partnerships and what you're talking about here, how will this address some of those issues here in the state?
Let me put it in an example for you. We recently were a driver through the foundation for over $1 million in funding for IU Health. And what this funding is for is to position recovery coaches in 13 of our hospital emergency departments. And this allows us to support people who are coming into these departments, not leaving and being on their own. Now, in the way that we've operated in the past, we really wouldn't have had the strategy to look at how we could drive this on a larger scale. And this is the ability for us to really secure that type of gift or that type of grant for that type of impact.
Yeah. And how does the foundation and some of these initiatives you're talking about touch on things like talent attraction, retention for that matter, but really that whole talent piece, which is a big issue for many businesses and communities around the state?
So, like a lot of businesses, Gary, we're recruiting nationally. Yep. And so part of it is you want to be able to offer to those really talented individuals who can bring the best of technology, the best of experiences to Indiana, those resources to do that, whether it's equipment, space, startup funding, so that they can build research programs and other types of programs here. And really that's what we're hoping philanthropy can do with us, is really how do we attract talent to the state that can make a difference, not only in those community health initiatives, but really specialty programs all across healthcare.
All right, some big goals for the IU Health Foundation, launching from IU Health here in central Indiana and across the state of Indiana. Crystal Miller, also Dennis Murphy. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Gary.
We'll talk to you soon.
Coming up later, Ball State students are getting some real-world experience at the Olympics, and our panel of insiders takes on the week's top stories. But now, Danielle Shockey has begun her new role as CEO of the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana. She comes from the Indiana Department of Education, where she was Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction. The Girl Scout alumna outlined her vision in our Eye on Education segment.
Congratulations on the new role. Just started January 1,
yes.
Officially, right? And I mentioned this, but your career really has been education focused on so many levels.
Right, exactly. And so I really feel this is kind of a coming together of my 20 years and bringing the best of what I learned about youth, as well as curriculum and programming and what really sparks their interest as both a teacher and a principal. And then the department position allowed me to have a statewide focus and recognizing that needs are different. Our state has so many unique communities, and so now I can bring those skills to bear with Girl Scouts in 45 counties.
And your 4 years at the Department of Ed to put you in contact and connection with businesses around the state and really perhaps better understanding the needs of businesses when it comes to a talent standpoint.
Absolutely. So I know college and career pathways, and we talk about in both education and workforce in Indiana what it takes to be a graduate of our K-12 system and really have the skill set ready to enter the workforce or college. And so by doing that in those 4 years at the department, we met with industry and business leaders who said, we can teach the skill, but it's the character traits and the soft skills and the problem solving and the communication. That's what we need. And I feel that's where a Girl Scout organization and the leadership experience in a Girl Scout provides that.
Yeah. How do you see Girl Scouts fitting into that equation, if
Sure.
you will, and your vision for Girl Scouts of Central Indiana in that regard?
So in my mind, I actually have this pathway picture, this vision that if you think about your K-12 trajectory, and you may pick STEM as your pathway, or you may pick business, or you name it, and then where these additional skills come into play along the way in your journey, I think Girl Scouts is the perfect place to find that. We offer programming in really so many areas, from archery to STEM to coding to medical, things that I think maybe people aren't aware you can get through a Girl Scout experience.
Yeah. Well, you talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So important these days in the state of Indiana and elsewhere. Talk about the STEM and the focus on STEM and how you see that as an important role at the Girl Scouts.
Right. So Girl Scouts really takes a deep dive into the research behind what girls need. And one of the things that we do know is women in the workforce, girls today, are entering in the STEM places far less frequent than boys. So we feel that that's a very important role, that we can provide those experiences so they may suddenly think, yes, I could be a scientist. I was recently with a group of girls in IPS and did some STEM activities, and the little girl next to me said, I don't hate science, I love science. And so that spark, I think, is what Girl Scouts provides.
Right. And as you look at growing the membership participation, I know we were talking off camera, your desire going forward to make the Girl Scouts available to all girls, to be more representative of the population.
Right. And so we work really hard at the Girl Scouts organization to figure out where are our pockets where we don't have troops, and how can we either start them as staff and then transition them into troop-led girl troops, or just continue to be troop or staff-led if possible. So we really look to what is the socioeconomic, what are our communities, rural, urban, where we do have gaps. We have specialized programs for Latina girls. We have low-income areas. We have Burmese troops. We have troops where the girls have been adopted from Japan and China, and so therefore they're a special community unto themselves. So again, there really isn't a troop type that we cannot create.
All right, Danielle Shockey is the new CEO at the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana. A lot on your plate. I know you have a lot going on. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Still to come, our Insiders panel weighs in on the biggest stories of the week. But first, Ball State University students are taking their news reporting skills to South Korea to be part of the international media contingent at the 2018 Olympic Winter Games. BSU at the Games made its debut at the London 2012 Olympics. Elizabeth Wyman and Josh Shelton with BSU at the Games joined us on Inside Indiana Sports.
Elizabeth, let's start with you, a senior from Cathedral, and you actually had the ability to do this before you were at the Rio Olympics with BSU at the Games.
Yeah, I did. I had the opportunity to go to Rio, and it's going to be a little different this year because we actually do have the full media passes, and before it was really just man on the street kind of culture stories, but with this access, we're going to get to do everything the professionals do, so it'll be wonderful.
Yeah, that's an exciting opportunity. Josh, you're a junior from Alexander, Virginia, and you told me before we went on the air that one of the reasons you chose Ball State was just this kind of possibility to do this, have this kind of hands-on experience.
Exactly. Everyone I talked to in the industry before I actually came and made a decision, said get your hands dirty as soon as you can, and that was Ball State's mantra. And so right away I was like, I'm going to be a fighting Cardinal.
You're going to be doing videography, and
Correct.
You'll be mostly in the mountain region of
yes, so we're working with WTHR in Indianapolis, and one of the things that they're only sending 2 people that are be working on news packages, and they're going to be in the coastal cluster. So we're going to be up in the mountains getting athlete interviews and interacting with everyone on Team USA. So that'll be my main job.
And Elizabeth, you're a writer, and so you'll be producing content, copy for lots of folks.
Yeah, we got lots of publications throughout the United States that maybe don't have enough people to send to the games, and we're going to be there, so we'll be writing gamers, features, anything they might want.
And also active on social media. That's where you kids all live these days, but very active on social media.
Yeah, and social media will be important, especially with the big time difference. We can live tweet things, and if people are awake here and can see it, that's even better.
Yeah, and Josh, again, this is this access that you have this time. This is
Right.
This is really going to make it a more hands-on experience.
Right. We're not like when they were in Rio. It was outside of the Olympics, but now we're just going to be working like any other full-time professional journalist, and that's one of the exciting things about it is We're not student journalists. We're just going to be journalists there.
Elizabeth, another thing you told me, you are actually working with some local publications that can't staff the Winter Olympics, and so you'll be doing stories on their athletes.
Yeah, lots of athletes from the Utah and Colorado Springs and Philadelphia, and if they can't get there, we'll be there to give them the coverage that they rightfully deserve. And
for both of you, as you prepare to wrap up your college careers, you next year and you in a few months, the opportunity to have this kind of portfolio to take to a potential employer is pretty valuable.
It's extremely valuable and experience that I don't know if you really can get anywhere else. And we're just lucky to have the opportunity and really show our skills before we even get out into the real world.
As we wrap up, Elizabeth, what do you want to do? I mean, what's your goal?
I want to be a sports writer for a publication at some point.
Yeah, you're tugging at my heart. Josh, how about you?
So not writing, unfortunately, but I would love to do video for any sort of sports team or just working in media. Anywhere I can.
Yeah. Well, they leave next week. And again, an incredible opportunity experience. Josh Shelton, Elizabeth Wyman, thanks so much for being on the show. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience in South Korea.
And finally this week, our panel of insiders offers perspective on the week's top stories. This week, we talked to Winston Terrell Group Principal Robin Winston, Hathaway Strategies President Ann Hathaway, and Faegre Baker Daniels partner Murray Clark.
Robin, I'll start with you. The short session of the Indiana General Assembly, almost to the midway point. Your take, at least so far, workforce issues, the smoking bill I mentioned, Sunday alcohol sales, a couple of the issues.
Well, I mean, right now they're at the halfway point. I'm going to be somewhat partisan here. I haven't seen a lot come out, and maybe that's good. They wanted smaller government, so they're getting it. They're not doing a lot. But if the fact of the matter is that, they still have a long time to go in the legislative session. Their clock never stops.
And one of the measures the state chamber supported, certainly the business community, was raising the minimum smoking age to 21. Also, we're supporting an increase in the cigarette tax. The measure on raising the minimum age, it came out of committee 9-0, but then ended up being snuffed out.
It did. Gary, smoking is a personal subject for me. I lost both my parents to smoking-related disease, and I'm for raising the age, I'm for raising the tax, I'm for making Indiana a healthier state by making cigarettes harder to get a hold of. So it's hard for me to look at this politically. I just want it to get through.
Yeah. Is it, do you think, anyone can jump in on this, but the business community, the state chamber, but a number of businesses, from a business standpoint, talking about the cost of smoking and insurance and those types of things. Is this something that comes back, will be revisited next session?
Oh, I think it will be. I mean, the chamber say that they want this bill to pass, which was counter to the Republican leadership in the General Assembly, or at least one of the Republican leaders in the General Assembly. I think that they're not going to go away because that cost for their employees is not going to go away.
Yeah. Well, but the chamber is not without success, I think, in this session. The chamber has led on local government reform for a long time. You see a township consolidation bill going through the process, looks very good. Workforce development legislation that the chamber is very active in, and have the cooperation of the Republican leadership at the State House. So I think the chamber will have some wins, I think, when all is said and done.
You bring up workforce, which is a big agenda item for Governor Holcomb and others. Obviously, a huge issue in the state. Do you sense that there's going to be some real traction and real workforce reforms that are going to get through?
Well, I do, and the governor is leading on this, his next level kind of workforce training program, which is really important. And you see where folks are transitioning different jobs. I mean, we have to get about workforce training and retraining, and I think you'll see something out of the legislature. But I think you're seeing real leadership from the governor too.
Yeah. Visit Indy, late in the week, came out with big numbers on tourism, sixth straight year of what they say are record tourism numbers in terms of visitors, but also investment and spending from those tourism folks. Robin, as you look at continuing that trend, there's been a lot of talk about perhaps expanding the convention center. Others say maybe they just need a new ballroom, but a big convention center hotel.
Big convention center hotel would help, but also things that you've done policy-wise. Dealing with the RFRA issue years ago was perfect. It demonstrated that we're too busy to worry about hatred. And that's important because, there used to be the old protest thing, the whole world is watching. Mm-hmm. The whole world really is watching Indianapolis to see what we're doing on issues. And that's why you're seeing Salesforce come here. That's why we're up for the NCAA. That's why people are bringing tourism dollars here.
Yeah, Leonard Hoops was on the show at the top of this week's show talking about the importance of nonstop flights,
right.
the nonstop to Paris, the international flight, but also the fact that I believe there are now more nonstops at Indianapolis International than any time ever, and how important that piece is.
It's so important, and there's so many exciting things happen. There is a very positive attitude. People are spending money. They're using our airport to come and go. You're seeing this in the Visit Indy numbers with how many people are coming to check our city out, the number of conventions. We're hitting it on all cylinders right now. I think that we're excited about what's happening. People are excited to check us out, and we're doing what we do best, is collaboration.
Yeah, and that collaboration piece, Murray, the Brookings Institution's one of their key players on urban issues, Bruce Katz, co-author of a book, The New Localism. And in that book, they singled out 3 cities, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, and Copenhagen, for their really visionary leadership when it comes to collaboration, public-private partnerships, academic partnerships, and getting things done. And saying Indianapolis has been ahead of the curve on that globally for a long time.
Yeah, and for different reasons, I think, on these cities. The interesting thing that I saw was that he really commended Indianapolis for what we've done well for decades, really, which is a culture of public-private cooperation and collaboration, and also really a respect for home rule, because I think he talks about a devolution of government from federal, local level. And so it's right in our sweet spot if that's what he thinks important.
Is the Indianapolis story, it seems increasingly beginning to get out now. The New York Times with that piece, is Indy cool enough for Amazon? And now this story, that Indy story that's been percolating for 20, 30 plus years is now beginning to get around the country.
And you see the kind of leadership that we had in the mayor's office. Between mayors, people cooperated. I mean, Joe was with Dick Lugar not long ago, naming a plaza in his honor. All the former mayors were there. People are trying to collaborate. They do get together. They do share ideas. You do have lots of partnerships working. I think it's great for our city.
Yeah.
I agree. Hoosiers do it right, and people are finding out our secret.
Let's shift gears now to, you talk about public-private partnership, a collaboration that helped to get Circle Center built many years ago. A lot of challenges there. We saw this week the parent company of Carson's, the department store, announced a bunch of store closings around the country, including 5 in Indiana, one of them at Circle Center. And
it's really disappointing. I think this is a real problem for downtown, for the mall. I think there'll be a lot of hand-wringing what happens next. A lot of mixed emotions about this, most of them not positive right now because we don't know what happens next.
Right. How, in your view, Robin, because that's been Circle Center for the convention crowd. Now it's changed in recent years, but that's been a big draw for that piece. How important is it to get this figured out? And no one person seems to have the answer, no one entity, but how important is it for this to be solved ultimately?
I think it's important, but if you go to Philadelphia, right away from City Hall, what used to be downtown stores there, Strawbridges and things, have now been turned into office buildings and places in and around their center core. Same thing happened in Louisville. That's indicative of what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised that this isn't adapted into housing or office space downtown, which would be prime space.
Yeah. Speaking of housing, tiny housing, coming to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. IMS President Doug Bowles talked this week. Try It Tiny LLC, a company. There you see one of the tiny houses, the interior there. Some nice accommodations. They will be offered. You had the glamping at the Speedway for the last several years. Now you're going to have tiny houses as another way to spend time, as we show the bathroom there, to spend time on the Speedway grounds in a tiny house. The Speedway's they're pulling out all the stops.
I mean, they market 24/7. They've been in New York City. They were up in Detroit at the International Auto Show. They work. We are so fortunate to have the leadership out there that gives it. They're all 24/7. They're great at marketing. Last year they had Alonzo was a great kind of marketing plus. This year it's the Danica Double.
Yeah.
I feel fortunate that we have the leadership out there. They're really working it.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Big race, tiny houses. It'll work out.
Yeah.
Makes the race fun.
All right. Very good. Well, that'll do it for another edition of The Insiders. Ann Hathaway, Murray Clark, Robin Winston. Thanks very much.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.